It has been almost a year since the menace of Zamasu and the corrupted Kibito challenged our heroes, and in this time, everyone's appreciation for what they once falsely thought of as boring peacetime has grown exponentially. Gohan, as the Guardian of Earth, sets the tone for his friends, as he not only continues his training and pursues answers around his new evolution of Super Saiyan Rage, but he also finally finds the equilibrium his parents always hoped he would, as he perfectly balances his duties as a god with time spent with his girlfriend Janet down on the surface, able at last to look at the world from the perspective of humanity, rather than distantly from the top down. Following his lead, the veteran Z fighters too have found a balance between steadily honing themselves for the next unknown threat while also keeping what drives them to do so in perspective. This period of peace sees Bulma, Trunks and Raditz taking a few vacations and family days, with a new member soon joining their family in the form of a baby girl named Bra. This combined with the decision to end Trunks' tutelage under an in-home tutor and enroll a hybrid into the local high school sees the newly appointed big brother remain true to his future counterpart's example, working hard to be there for those who need him in whatever form that may take. Meanwhile, Nappa, having truly reached the end of his prime years, has slowed down in his search for Vegeta, accepting that perhaps the prince's final fate is not one he will ever know. Nowadays, he mostly finds himself hanging out at Kame House with Master Roshi, watching the tides roll in, and missing the company of trusted comrades like Raditz, Tien, or Krillin. For the latter pair, Tien has settled comfortably into his life at Capsule Corp, knowing that soon he will be called upon to serve as martial arts instructor to another of Raditz's kids, while Chatsu spends much of his time as Bra's informal nanny, wowing her with acts of telekinesis, thanks to his psychic powers. Krillin's life is certainly the most high profile of the group, with him living the life of a celebrity thanks to his status as World Martial Arts Champ. When the tournament had come round again, Raditz and Nappa had threatened to enter and take his title, but this had all been in jest, allowing Krillin to once more prove himself the world's strongest human, and a hero the people of Earth can admire. Life is good, and only made better when one evening Gohan reaches out to his friends and family through his godly telepathy and instructs them to join him on the lookout. At first, the defenders of Earth worry the young Guardian has detected some threat that requires all their attention, but when they arrive on the lookout, it is to a jubilant Gohan and Janet, with the latter revealing that Gohan has proposed. An outpouring of joy then erupts around the happy couple, with the heroes excitedly congratulating them and expressing their desire to help out however they can. This includes Bulma offering to host at Capsule Corp, Krillin offering to use his media connections to have the event televised, and Nappa offering to go fetch them a super sweet Shigarian fruit to garnish the wedding cake. Modestly, Gohan thanks them all for their support, though admits that they have decided on a small ceremony up here on the lookout, just like when Goku and Chi-Chi got married. And so it is that roughly a week later, Gohan and Janet's friends and family gather on the lookout to bear witness as the pair become husband and wife. Even Beerus and Whis are in attendance, with the Destroyer God looking remarkably out of place in his usual attire with the sole addition of a moth-eaten old tie that Whis seems to have forced him to wear. Chi-Chi is also present, having cashed in her one-day pass to be with her son on his special day, and there are many happy tears upon their reunion, as well as when he introduces her at last to Janet. The ceremony is a short and simple one, with the Grand Supreme Kai acting as officiant, and when it ends, a party begins the like of which the lookout has not seen since the defeat of Super Buu, or perhaps the day Gohan was returned to life. Everyone manages to have a good time, be they human, alien, or deity, and between the food and dancing it is hard not to. Even the speeches are perfect, with Raditz's best man speech bringing a few of the guests to tears, as he gives a touching tribute to the pride he has in his nephew, and the joy he feels in knowing he found love. However, as is always the way, nothing can stay perfect forever, and so after one too many glasses of alcoholic punch, Beerus drunkenly challenges Gohan to battle, declaring that if the Guardian doesn't comply, he will destroy this world. In a level tone, Gohan suggests that he would be happy to fight the Destroyer tomorrow, but with an edge of petulance, Beerus snaps that he's sick and tired of waiting for his supposed arch-rival to give him the rematch he's owed, destruction energy forming in his palm, as if to say that he is deadly serious about the consequences of refusing him. Sighing that he guesses he has no choice, Gohan steps forward to do battle with the cat, but before he can get very far, Trunks steps in front of his cousin, telling him not to ruin his nice clothes, and that he'll fight Beerus in his stead. Cocking a bold brow, Beerus groans that he's pretty sure Trunks is the mouthy brat he already slapped around the planet, so why would he waste time fighting him again? However, with a cocky grin reminiscent of his father's younger days, Trunks replies that a lot has changed since then, flaring his aura and entering his ultimate form. This at last gets the God of Destruction's attention, as he recognizes the form as one created by that old Kai from eons ago. and so settling into his fighting stance, he tells the boy to come at him with everything he's got. Casting off his jacket and tie, Trunks lunges forward, hurling a punch at Beerus's jaw, but the god is faster, lashing out with his tail and wrapping it around Trunks' wrist. He then pulls the bound arm into the air, holding Trunks at an awkward angle that leaves his face exposed for a slap, with Beerus intending to remind this uppity child of the lesson he ought to have learned about minding his manners. However, Trunks has come a long way since that day, and so raises his free arm to block the blow. Then, ignoring the pain jolting through his arm, he brings it back down in a chop to Beerus's emaciated ribs. Howling at this unexpected hit, Beerus slackens his grip on Trunks' wrist ever so slightly, but this is enough for the hybrid Saiyan, who wriggles free of the hold and strikes his foe with a shining Friday to the head. The force of this hit sends Beerus crashing into the lookout's thick paving stones, and as he lies there, those who know the cat wonder if he's been vanquished. However, when he sits back up with clearer eyes, they realize that all Trunks managed to do with that hit was sober the Destroyer up. Or rather, that is the main achievement, with the other being that Trunks' Shining Friday also managed to disintegrate the bottom half of Beerus' tie, a fact the deity is none too happy about, as he snarls that this was his only tie, so now Whis is going to subject him to an arduous shopping trip to find another. For that alone, he should destroy the boy. Gulping, Trunks begins to stammer that he's really sorry, and that he has a bunch of ties at home that Beerus can choose from. But the damage is already done, as an instant later, the Destroyer God appears in front of Trunks and drives a knee into his gut that sends him flying to the stratosphere with a sonic boom. Vanishing again, Beerus appears above Trunks, ready to slam him back down to Earth. But thankfully, Trunks' quick mind inherited from his mother allows him to formulate a counter on the fly, and so as Beerus' tail swings down, Trunks launches a kick up to counter it. He then rights himself in midair and throws himself at the god once more, this time being able to close the distance and begin trading blows with Beerus. It is a surprisingly close match, with each giving roughly as good as they get, though Beerus does have one advantage Trunks does not, that being his ability to breathe in space. With the air being so thin this high up, it is only a matter of time before this begins to weigh on Trunks, and as he begins to flag, Beerus seizes more and more opportunities to exploit his failing body. One such maneuver even sees him grab the boy in a full Nelson, then drop down to the lookout at high speeds, pile-driving Trunks into the pavers with a nasty crack. However, even this is not enough to keep the spunky half-Saiyan down, as with a cry he lurches back up, slamming his fist into Beerus' jaw. While employing his godly reflexes, Beerus does the same to Trunks. For a moment, both combatants stand with their fists buried in the other's cheek, neither seemingly able to break the deadlock. Then from behind them, a voice declares this has gone far enough. Turning to see the speaker, Trunks and Beerus see not Gohan or even Bulma, but instead Janet, as she scolds them that they should stop this silly fighting and use their words. Turning first to Beerus, she reminds him that Trunks tried to apologize for damaging his tie, while to Trunks she asks if he can understand why what he did hurt Beerus' feelings. Looking more than a little stunned at the way she is speaking to them, both Trunks and Beerus mumble their acknowledgement of what she's saying. Then Beerus gruffly tells the boy to show him those spare ties, admitting that for what it's worth, he might make a decent rival if Gohan doesn't live up to the role. Though Trunks says nothing to this, those who know him best immediately notice the change in his eyes, as if suddenly a terrible weight has been lifted from his shoulders. Even though he did not beat Beerus or even come close to it, the fact that he can stand up to the Destroyer now is enough to allow him to finally put his fear of Beerus behind him, and as he passes his parents and Gohan, they each give him a smile, happy to see that he has found some peace. Meanwhile, the rest of the guests have all gathered around Janet, gushing at how she so effectively broke up that fight. Modestly, Janet admits that as a preschool teacher, she's had plenty of practice, causing Nappa to quip that maybe next time they come up against a world-ending threat, they should bring Janet along and see if she can talk them out of causing havoc. With an amused smile, Janet looks to her new husband, asking what he thinks of her joining him in the world-saving business. With a broad, genuine smile of his own, Gohan replies that he would be happy to have her, though first if she'd be up for it, he'd like to have one more dance. From here on out, everything about the wedding is perfect. Well, almost everything. The absence of Goku weighs heavily on Gohan, though he hardly blames his father, as he knows that he and Shin have still not returned from the Omni King's palace. Instead, he worries for his father's safety, and more than anything, he wishes he could have been here today. Finally, it comes time for the reception to end, and with broad smiles, Gohan and Janet thank everyone for coming and bid them farewell. The hardest goodbye is understandably Chi-Chi's, though echoing Raditz, she expresses both pride and and joy for her son, giving him a hug, then urging Janet to look after him. Smiling at her mother-in-law, Janet solemnly vows to do just that, earning her a smile as Chi-Chi praises her son for picking such a kind and scholarly bride, then returns at last to Otherworld, leaving the newlywed couple alone. Following this, life returns to normal, though it comes as little surprise to anyone when shortly after the wedding, Gohan and Janet announce they are expecting. In what seems like no time at all, the Z-Warriors find themselves back on the lookout, this time to welcome Gohan and Janet's new baby into the world. Thanks to some assistance from Whis, the delivery is instantaneous and pain-free, and as the angel hands the couple their child, they are delighted to finally be able to meet their son. Thanks to Janet's methodical nature, they already have a name planned out, and so it is that when they present the baby to their family and friends, it is as Son Gohei, written with the kanji for enlightenment and warrior, in the hopes that he will find balance between mind and muscle. As the first ever quarter Saiyan born, Raditz and Nappa are fascinated by him, wondering if this genetic mixing with Gohan's potent potential will make him an even more formidable warrior than his father, while Trunks with his toddler sister in his arms is amazed at the thought of being an uncle. As for the humans, they are simply happy for Gohan and Janet, giving their congratulations, though Bulma is curious why Whis did not offer her the same assistance when she gave birth to Bra. Despite the many challenges Gohan has experienced during his turbulent life, and even brief afterlife, nothing comes close to the early days of parenthood. He and Janet are on constant alert to make sure Gohei is safe and comfortable, worrying late into the night about troubles that may not even afflict him for years, if ever. However, all their fears and labors are well worth it, as when their son is at peace, and the three of them are together, there is no greater joy in all the world, and Gohan at last truly knows what he has been fighting for all these years. Though it seems the Guardians' fighting days may not be over yet, as a few months later, the Lookout receives an unexpected guest, that being Goku. Gohan is of course delighted to see his father, welcoming him home and introducing him to Janet and Gohei, but he can't help but express his surprise at his arrival, considering it's been 2 years since he and the Supreme Kai was summoned to Lord Zeno's palace, and no one's heard a word from them since. Giggling absent-mindedly and rubbing the back of his head, Goku asks if it's really been that long, saying it's really easy to lose track of time when you're dead. Solemnly, Gohan confirms that it has been, before asking the more pressing questions. What happened during his audience with the Omni King, and why is Goku here now? Growing serious, Goku explains that he and Shin were called to Zeno's palace to discuss his spar with Zamasu from Universe 10. Figuring it had been something like this, Gohan asks if the Omni King was angry about that, but here Goku shakes his head, saying actually he was thrilled and wanted his and Shin's help planning a multiversal tournament, kinda like the one they had on the Sacred World of the Kais, so he could see more awesome fights. This is the last thing Gohan had been expecting, and so he goggles as Goku continues, explaining for the last 2 years, the three of them along with Zeno's attendant the Grand Priest had been hammering out the details. In the end they had decided on a style similar to the World Martial Arts Tournament, where it would be single fights, though with teams like their Sacred World Tournament. To make sure that every universe has a fighting chance, team size is determined by something called mortal level, which basically means the overall quality of the mortals of that universe. As one of the weak universes, they are being permitted to have a team of 4 fighters, though the Omni King did want him to mention that he wants 3 of those slots to be filled by Gohan, Trunks, and Raditz, as he enjoyed their fights on the Sacred World. Though Gohan is slightly perturbed at the notion their universe is considered one of the weaker ones, he isn't overly concerned, telling his dad in that case he can be their 4th member, and there'll be nothing to worry about. Giggling again, Goku replies that while he'd love to compete, he's been forbidden from entering, since as the one who helped create all the rules, he'd have an unfair advantage. Instead, he's been given a different role, though he'll be present to cheer Gohan on. Sighing, Gohan says he guesses he understands, suggesting he might ask someone like Nappa or Tien to be their 4th fighter, since it's okay if one of their fighters isn't quite as strong as the others. However, here Goku stops his son, remembering the most important rule that he had meant to tell him, that if all the fighters on any given team are eliminated, then their universe will be erased. Despite his joy at being reunited with his dad, Gohan can't help but scold him here, telling Goku that he should have mentioned that first, since it changes everything. How are they supposed to protect the universe from erasure with just 4 people? Adopting a look of calm confidence, Goku lays a hand on his son's shoulder, saying that he knows he'll find a way, though he better choose a 4th fighter soon, since the tournament's in 3 days. This at last is too much for Gohan, who falls backwards, having seemingly fainted from this shock on top of all the others, as baby Gohei giggles at his daddy's silly antics in her arms, mom, Janet sighs that she guesses up to her, telling Goku it was lovely to meet him, before going to find Mr. Popo to ask him to summon the Z-Fighters at once. A few minutes later, the heroes of Earth are all standing in the Lookout's courtyard, and while at first they assume they're being called to celebrate the return of Goku, like with the last two happy summons, their delight quickly cools into fear as a recovered Gohan fills them in on the situation. Understanding the severity of their predicament, Nappa, Tien, and Krillin are all hesitant to take part in the tournament for fear of dragging their universe down. However, if there truly is no other choice, all three of them are willing to step up and do their duty. Smiling gratefully, Gohan thanks them, though from the side, Goku grins mischievously, saying that while he's not allowed to fight in the tournament, that doesn't mean he can't recommend a fighter. Looking at him with curiosity, the heroes ask if Goku has someone in mind, to which the former Guardian replies that he knows just the guy, though he's not sure how much his friends will like it, since he's a denizen of hell. Worriedly, Krillin asks if Goku's sure it's a good idea to entrust the fate of their universe to a villain, but Tien replies that it wouldn't be the first time, pointing out that aside from Gohan and Trunks, each of the Z-Warriors was Goku's enemy at one point. Noting at the logic of this, Gohan declares that he'll go with his dad to scout this mystery fighter out, while Nappa, hoping to at last get a chance to check if Vegeta's there, says he'll tag along as well. And so it is that the three Saiyans depart for Hell, leaving behind their friends, with instructions to prepare, since if Goku's pick turns out to be a bust, one of them may be needed to be their fourth man. It is only when Gohan and Uncle Kakarot are gone that Trunks notices something odd, that during that entire meeting his dad didn't say a word. Turning to look at him, the young son of Raditz and Bulma is surprised to see a deeply troubled expression on his father's face, though when Raditz spots Trunks looking, he hastily tries to mask it, asking if the boy is ready to go home in a forced calm tone. The return flight to Capsule Corp passes just as silently, with Raditz making no comment at all about the shocking news they received, or the burden that now falls upon them as half of their universe's team. When they arrive back home, Trunks finally takes the initiative, asking his dad if he'd like to train with him, but with a soft shake of his head, Raditz says that maybe he'll be up for it later, though now he needs a word with Bulma. Shrugging that he guesses he'll see him later, Trunks then heads off for the gravity room, wanting to make sure he's in top shape for this tournament. While still in his mute stupor, Raditz makes for Bulma's lab. As soon as she sees him, Bulma immediately knows that something is wrong, and so putting down her tools, approaches her husband to ask what's the matter. Grimly, Raditz explains the news he has received about the Omni Kings tournament, and the fact that he has been selected to take part in it. However, this is not all, as he also confides in Bulma his fears that he is not up to the task, since during the battle with Goku and Gohan Black, he was more of a liability than an asset, having to be protected by Gohan and the two Trunkses. He doesn't want to be the one responsible for their universe being erased, but he's afraid that with the limited time they have left, he can't catch up. Pressing her head to his chest, Bulma reassures her partner that things will be alright, though if he's concerned about not being strong enough, she may have a way to help him. However, she doubts he will like her method, since it will fly in the face of his Saiyan pride. Surprisingly, Raditz doesn't hesitate, looking down at his wife, and in a solemn voice saying that he doesn't care. If her idea will allow him to protect their home, protect her and their children, then he will sacrifice anything in pursuit of that goal, even his pride. It only takes an instant for Goku, Gohan, and Nappa to reach Hell by Kai, though for Nappa it feels much longer, as a knot forms in his stomach. Any minute now, he is going to get the answer he has been seeking for many years, an answer he had thought was forever out of his grasp, and now that he is so close, he isn't sure what to hope for. All the same, when the surroundings of Hell solidify around him, he sets off in search of one of the Oni overseers, to see if they can enlighten him on the fate of Vegeta. This leaves Goku and Gohan alone, with the latter commenting that he can't believe his dad was trapped here all by himself for 7 years. But with a smile, Goku replies that it wasn't all bad, and he certainly wasn't alone. In fact, he can already sense his comrades coming to greet him. Good to his word, two figures soon appear on the horizon, before coming in to land in front of Goku and Gohan. The first of them is a scarred man in Saiyan armor, who Gohan doesn't know, but who bears an uncanny resemblance to his dad, while the other is Cell, who grins cockily when he sees who Goku has brought with him. As soon as he lays eyes on him, Gohan glares hatefully at Cell, but before he can say anything, the unnamed Saiyan pipes up, barking at Goku that he better not have gotten himself banished here again for something stupid. Laughing awkwardly, Goku admits that he's just visiting this time, though he's brought Gohan with him. This catches the man's attention, with him fixing Gohan with an appraising gaze before introducing himself as Bardock, his grandfather. Humbly, Gohan bows, saying it is an honor to meet him, and that his uncle Raditz always speaks highly of his father, calling him the epitome of Saiyan kind. This pleases Bardock, who gives a gruff grin, replying that he's glad to hear Raditz managed to make something something of himself before asking what the purpose of their visit is in a no-nonsense manner. Smiling, Goku answers that they're here to recruit Cell for an upcoming tournament which will decide the fate of the universe, but here Gohan flatly refuses, saying he will not fight side by side with that piece of filth. Smirk widening, Cell asks why not, reminding the young Guardian of how well they once got along, before telling him that if he's afraid he'll go on a rampage, he can assure him that he's a bona fide good guy these days. Coldly, Gohan points out that this was the lie Cell spun to win their trust the first time. But truthfully, he doesn't care about Cell's betrayal. Just like he doesn't care whatever heroic deeds he might have done down here in hell. Because when he looks at him, he will always see the same thing. The monster who took his mother from him. At once, the memories of that day overwhelm Gohan, and unable to help himself, he powers up into his rose-tinted rage form. Causing Cell to raise an insectoid brows, he laughs that now he has to take part in the tournament, since how could he pass up a chance to fight that? Growling, Gohan retorts that Cell won't have to wait for the tournament for that, lunging at the bio-android and swinging a kick meant to decapitate him. Arms crossed, Cell leaps back, avoiding the kick, though this does not stop Gohan, who is on a rampage, as he barrels forward, trying to strike his foe with everything he has. In contrast to Gohan, Cell remains perfectly calm, continuing to simply dodge attacks without any sign of going on the offense. This only further infuriates Gohan, with the young man getting progressively more and more worked up, much to Cell's amusement, as he taunts that Gohan's getting sloppy, and he should remember from the Cell games what he does to sloppy fighters. This slight is seemingly one too many, as at last Gohan closes in on the bio-bug, swinging a haymaker that drops Cell to the ground. Then before the android can rise to his feet, Gohan pounces on his prone form, pinning him down and laying into him with a series of punches to the face. Were he not dead, any one of these blows could have been a fatal strike, and with concern in his voice, Goku orders his son to stand down, since if he injures Cell too badly, his soul will cease to exist and he won't be able to help fight in the tournament. Gohan's only response is a hiss that he doesn't care, the venom in his voice clearly indicating that he is not in his right mind, and for a moment, Goku wonders if he should intervene and force Gohan off Cell. However, before the ex-Guardian can make a move, Cell grins that it's kind of Goku to be concerned for him, but it's not like he's in any real danger. He then flares his ki, and at once the yellow crackling aura becomes flame-like as his crown and several pieces of his bio-armor are dyed a deep crimson. This development stuns Gohan, and never want to pass up an opportunity, Cell drives a backhand into Gohan's cheek, which sends the young man tumbling backwards. Rising back to his feet, Cell then declares that the Sacred World Tournament was even broadcast down here in Hell, and since then he has been working to attain a new form of his own. Eventually he was able to acquire this, which he dubbed Cell God, though this will be his first real chance to test it against a worthy opponent. By now Gohan is also back on his feet, and so runs at Cell, but still being in his sloppy berserk state, it takes very little for the bio-android to drive a lazy punch into his gut. Gasping for air, Gohan begins to fall to his knees, but even in this Cell will not allow him to have his way, grabbing the young Guardian by the hair and holding him up so they can be face to face. In a tone of smug superiority, he informs Gohan that up until now he'd just been letting him vent his frustrations so they could work together more effectively as a team, but if the brat wants to play around with lethal force, then he'll have to face the consequences. A ball of ki then forms in Cell's free hand, and as he lets go of Gohan's hair, the young man can't help but fall face first into it, being blasted into the air and coming down with a splash in the bloody pond. Striding over to join his opponent, Cell is surprised to see that Gohan has reverted back to his base form, suggesting that he's run out of energy, and so with a treacherous grin, asks if Gohan sees now why Team Universe 7 needs his help. Gritting his teeth, Gohan nods, and this makes Cell cackle, as he states that he's glad to hear it, promising that they will have a lot of fun together in this tournament. Rising from the pool of blood, Gohan gives his nemesis a stern look, and despite the evident gap in power between them, he warns that if he has any reason to believe Cell is going to betray or do harm to their universe, he will end him, even if it costs him his life. Laughing harder, Cell sneers that considering what happened to his parents at the Cell game, it's honestly something of a family tradition at this point. Though Gohan shouldn't worry, since as long as the other universe's fighters give him entertaining matches, he'll be more than happy to uphold his end of the bargain. Here Goku steps in, saying that he's known Cell long enough to know he's speaking the truth, but this does little to assuage Gohan's suspicion as he stalks away from Dr. Gero's ultimate creation, a hateful glare still on his face. Sighing deeply, Goku apologizes to Cell for Gohan's actions, but with a shake of his head, the big bug tells his former comrade not to worry about it. If anything, this animosity adds a level of interest to the proceedings. Shaking his own head that Cell sure is a weird guy, Goku trots off after Gohan, promising to come get Cell when it's time for the tournament to begin. Reuniting with his son and Nappa a little ways away, Goku tells them they can go home now if they wish, but to his surprise, Nappa stops him, asking for a favor. According to the ogres, Vegeta has never passed through here, but they suggested he talk to King Yemma and maybe King Kai, since if Vegeta truly is alive out there, they would be the ones best suited to help him find him. Smiling, Goku promises to take him and do the introductions, before turning to Gohan and saying that once he's done this, he'll have to return to Zeno's palace, which means they won't meet again until the tournament begins. Nodding his understanding, Gohan embraces his father, promising to train hard between now and then. The ex-Guardian and Nappa then Kai away, while Gohan prepares to do the same, though just as he is about to vanish into the ether, he turns back one last time, locking eyes with Cell. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.